G'day guys, this is Jay here from Journey of a Whitefeather back here in Australia. I won't say unfortunately, I usually do, I try to sell it. I love Canada and can't help Canada because I've got a friend of mine from Canada over here. I went and saw some black bears, that was great. Come back and saw some kangaroos and koalas, but I see them all the time. So I've got Laverne from, I'm going to say 7 hours from Calgary, 4 hours from Edmonton. He's I was going to say personal development mentor. So you've been through a bit in your life, my friend. I've watched a lot of your videos, and that's why I reached out to you to get you out there because I think you have a story that people need to hear. So welcome, fellow Canadian. I love Canadians. I wish I was one sometimes.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. And I wish that I was an Australian until I remember about all the snakes you guys have, and I'm happy to be
The
here in
snakes,
Canada.
yeah. I went up, right? I got called Steve Irwin 100 times because apparently I sound like Steve Irwin, right? Because I talk like, and all I did, they want me to do Steve Irwin impersonation. I got the big snake, mate. Look at that big snake going to come and get you. Snakes aren't that big, mate. It's the black and brown ones, they'll kill you. But anyway, because I got anything. But, it's just like the bears. Everyone's going, oh, why are you going near bears for? They're 6 foot. I go, oh, they're beautiful creatures, mate.
Yeah.
Great to
You
see
can
them as
carry
well.
bear spray for bears, though. I don't know what you guys do for brown snakes, so it's
Stay
just
away.
scary to me.
Stay away from them. But here we are talking about yourself, mate. I reached out to you because I saw a lot of your videos on TikTok. I think I saw your story from pretty much the start when you actually came upon the platform, and you're just here to share the experiences you've had. And I see a lot of the videos is just getting into that positive mindset that we're all doing that. I call it an awakening process, personal development, growth, whatever you want to call it. But it's something that you can tell yourself you're very passionate about. You've been through a bit of stuff. So this is a platform for you, my friend. Welcome to a chat with Jay. And I'm going to leave it over to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get to this point in your life?
Oh man, it's been quite the ride, I gotta say. And until I learned that all of those experiences were actually making me a stronger and better person, it wasn't a very fun ride at all. Um, I grew up in a cult, and
Oh,
of
really?
course, when you're,
Wow.
yeah, so when you're a child, you don't realize that you're in this strange environment
Sorry.
because it's just normal to you, right?
Yeah, of course.
Um, and one of those things that is normalized where I grew up is sexual abuse, and
Wow. Oh, here we
I
okay.
was yeah, I was sexually assaulted, and all of my friends in my age group, we all knew what was going on, and they were all telling their parents, and yet, I was left out for as prey, or to be preyed upon by this individual. And then when I told my parents, I was eventually brought back there again and re-victimized, which at that time, it took me 40 years to realize it, or 30 years to realize it, is I suffered an extremely deep abandonment wound when that happened, because I was physically left to be, abused. And so nothing was ever done about it. The abuse continued for years to other people. Luckily for me, that was it for me. Um, I had a very violent mother growing up, and it was that whole unhealthy, toxic kind of parent and then empath child dynamic, where the empath child is the scapegoat, gets all the abuse, gets all the punishment.
That's
And
interesting. I'm sorry to cut you off. That's very interesting because a lot of people that I do speak to, you said that you've gone through this part of your journey and they felt that they were an empath when they were younger. I mean, I felt that myself. Can I just to go off a little bit off track? Did you feel at a young age you felt this at a young age, and did you have any inkling of, like, I guess talking to, I mean, we always talk to our invisible friends and all those and make jokes about it, but we actually do it, don't we?
mhm. Yeah, so I had some invisible friends growing up. A lot of my childhood I can't remember.
Okay.
Uh, and I think probably because of dissociation or whatever it might have been.
Mm.
But I do remember, so I was 40 years old before I even began entertaining the idea that I might be an empath because I didn't even know what it was.
Okay. And what
But
was and
I
what was the point of life that you understood that you could have been an empath at that age?
after my divorce
Okay.
and
Great.
started breaking down who I was, right?
Great.
Uh, yeah. Um,
Great.
but I was always very caring child. I was always like, I had 8 siblings. We'd all go to the store and I'd be the first one out of candy because I was sharing with all my siblings. Right. I always shared a lot. So I think there was that. I remember looking at magazines and seeing pictures of people and just being bothered for weeks, like feeling sorry for them. Um,
Okay.
that's what I remember or what I can see from that time as me being an empath. Anyway, I got a lot of violent punishment for things that my siblings wouldn't get in trouble for. Sometimes I would get punishment for them, and sometimes I would
Yeah.
get punishment for things that I didn't even do.
Mm.
And it is what it is. I carried a lot of rage in my system towards my mom for many years.
Yes.
Um, and actually I was a very angry young man. And when I was about 18 or 19, I realized that I couldn't live with anger. It didn't serve me. I wasn't going to be happy. And I wish I could remember how I got rid of it, but I just realized that I need to get rid of it. And so I did, but I didn't do any healing. Or I must have done some, but I wasn't
Do
angry.
you think it was do you think it was subconscious yourself? Like you sort of said maybe you've accessed your subconscious. I know there was a point where I understood where the anger was coming from when I was doing my
Yeah.
shadow warrior course type thing. And that's just that brief moment that you could understand. And then it gets you into another awareness of where it is. And
Yeah.
look, there's still harbor a little bit of resentment and stuff like that, but you sort of have a more of an understanding. Did you go through that process as well?
Yeah. I knew very well why I was angry. I was angry at the man who had abused me, and I was angry at the church for protecting him and letting it go on.
Okay.
He died when I was 34 years old.
Right.
And I remember thinking by that time, I'd done more work on myself, but really I hadn't, in the whole scheme of things, I hadn't done much. And I felt sad for him because he had died young. And I'm like, that's an early death. Like I had forgiven him by that point,
Okay.
but I still hadn't done the healing. So I had got to the point of understanding how he became who he was and forgiving him, but I hadn't healed anything yet.
That's a big step. I mean, we understand we can forgive, and that's just a word, and we go, oh, we forgive it, but we've still got to deal with the process of the hurt with inside us or the subconscious programming that has been put into us to protect our psyche and our spirit. That's fair to say, isn't it?
Yeah, and actually I just had a thought while you were talking is that like for me a lot of my process has been understanding, then forgiving, and then healing.
Mm.
And with when it came to my mom, it was actually understanding, healing, and then forgiving her to get further healing.
Gotcha. Makes
Right?
sense.
Because it was so ingrained. And I can get to that later in my story.
Absolutely.
Uh
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that
um
too. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Did you
So
did you feel did you feel sorry to cut? Oh, this is interesting as
yeah.
well, Buggery. It's great, mate. Great to have you on board. Just the process, because a lot of people do it in different ways. Like, I mean, not different ways, but there's a timeline from getting to where you want to where you start. And you said you were you forgave her last before you did the healing first. Am I correct there? Is that correct?
Yeah, and I did the healing, and then when I did the forgiveness, it gave me more healing.
Gotcha.
Right. And nothing's linear, right? Like everything's intermingled, all the pain and trauma from all these places,
Yep.
at least for me, right? Like it's
Yeah, of
not,
course.
you have
So,
one trauma, you get rid of it and then you're good, right? Like
no, we're brought on
it
this earth.
seems like,
We're brought on this earth perfectly. I mean, we all these experiences come onto us, and I mean, especially people like us who are sort of spiritually aware of what's going on. It is a hard thing, especially a young kid. We're not taught how to cope with that, and we're wondering why we're different.
yeah. Yeah. I had a deep shame for many years. Um, I wouldn't talk about where I grew up. I wouldn't talk about my sexual assault. And then around my mid 30s, I started realizing, like, wait a minute, this isn't mine to carry. I didn't have a choice in this. This happened to me as a child. I was born into this family, whatever. So that's not my shame to carry. And then I was able to shed some of that, right? And realize that, I was actually quite a normal person. I used to feel that I wasn't worth, like, a very profound sense of unworthiness. I wasn't worthy of anything good, right? Um, and it's interesting because that was in my personal life. My professional life always did really well, but my personal life and the childhood trauma that kind of affected that, it was really it was stunted for quite a long time.
Did you find because I professionally tried to move on, say the 3D and 5D, we'll just use it for use of better word. You sort of we were always living in that 3D for about 20 years because we haven't understood the shadow subconscious programming that we've got. They can tell you all about it, but you have to actually have proper, I guess, one-on-one. I guess be aware that you're going to be aware that you need that these are affecting you. You can do all the courses that you want, but you have that one-on-one and actually understand it. And then you move into your 5D, which is where your purpose is going, which where you are right now, where I am. And we're still sort of balancing that stuff. How did you cope in those 20 years? Like, I mean, you said, I mean, I could say the same thing, a lot of rage, a lot of anger, eating crap, all that kind of stuff. Did that affect you in a lot of ways? Or, was it just like when something happened, you'd probably, I mean, I know I blamed the person who was hurting me type thing like that. Would those kind of things go around? I'd like to take this time to shout out our supporters at Liberty Bullion, the best gold, silver and platinum traders in Melbourne, even Australia. If you want to give them a call, their knowledge, their customer service is second to none. Back to the show.
Yeah, like I wasn't even I look back and I was so unaware, like just so asleep for lack of a better term. Like
Yeah,
um
absolutely.
I was very misogynistic based on my view of women,
Mm.
which was based on the view of my mom that I had growing up, right? And
Yeah.
so I was stuck between wanting to get into relationships, but not wanting to be in relationships either, because I didn't trust women and I didn't really think they were trustworthy. I just assumed they were all like my mom. And so that affected my personal relationships. I would get in one and then I'd bail quick, right? Because
Yep.
scared of getting hurt, whatever, right?
Yep.
And then when I was 30, 32, 31, I finally decided, you know what? I'm going to find a partner. And
So you made a conscious choice within your mind. I mean, you made that conscious
yeah,
choice to sort of
yeah,
step into the wild.
yeah. But what I should have been doing was making a choice to like heal myself and
We
like
didn't
figure
know,
out
mate.
who I
I
was.
mean, but
No, you're
we didn't
right. I
know.
did.
We didn't
No,
know. We didn't
not
know
at
how to
all.
do it. We didn't know how to do
Yeah,
it. I mean, I can absolutely appreciate that. And a lot of people
yeah,
don't know how. This is why you and me and all the gang that we're getting together, these super friends, are. This is what our
yeah,
life theory is. Keep going. Sorry, this is really interesting.
yeah. No. So, I was working by that time I got into law enforcement. I was working in law enforcement, and something I always wanted kids, right? And I'm
Yep.
like, man, I'm 31 now. I got to get on this, and I got to push past, my fears or whatever, and find a wife. And I think that opened me up. But the first lady that came along that showed me what I thought was love, we ended up getting married and having two amazing children with. Um, and then in 2016, no, sorry, 2017, work kind of went sideways for me. I was um, I was involved in an incident, and the guy put up post of me on social media, made some veiled threats, and it just really affected me. More so than like something like that probably wouldn't even affect me now, but it really affected me. The guy he didn't know it, but he was my neighbor. I knew that he was around the corner from me in my neighborhood.
Wow.
And a week later, I had the first ever anxiety attack when I saw him again, and I wasn't. He never saw me, and I was on duty in uniform in a marked vehicle, and I had an anxiety attack. But I just did what I'd always done, and I let time kind of erode that emotional charge from the event. And a couple months later, I was assigned a project that I didn't feel like I was capable of doing, but my management told me, they said that I was the only person that could successfully do it. So I put a tremendous amount of pressure on myself. And then over the summer months, when I would reach out to them for assistance, they all seemed to always gone on summer vacation. And so what I didn't realize was my old childhood abandonment wound was starting to resurface. It was starting to come up, and it showed up with declining mental health. I was irritable, and then I would get angry. And then, 4 months into the project, by October, I would have bouts of rage, and I would just fly off the handle. And I've always been a pretty chill guy. So, that was a pretty big red flag for me. It took my ex-wife 2 months to convince me to go to counseling. I walked into counseling. Within 5 minutes, the therapist looks at me and says, "You need a break from work." So I ended up taking some time off from work. It took 3 weeks. And I noticed that I didn't feel any better. I'm like, nothing's changing. Like I don't want to go back to work. But I did because there was a course that I wanted to attend. So I came back to work, and one of the first things I did was yell at one of my supervisors. And that should have been a huge red flag. But I didn't pay attention to it, neither did anybody else. I just kind of got in crap, and then everybody went about their way. And then 2 months after that, they reorganized our shifts at work, and our shift was left without a supervisor. And management told me, said, "We're not going to fill this spot, but you're the de facto leader anyway." And so now I wanted to prove to them how good of a leader I could be.
What's the key word there? Prove.
Yeah.
I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah. What I didn't realize, and you're going to understand this, what I didn't realize is I was a people pleaser. And so I was giving everything at work, trying to prove my worth. And then I was coming home, and I was trying to prove my worth at home as a dad and a husband. And I wasn't leaving anything for myself. There was nothing.
Exactly. I always say you're the diamond you're the diamond that you've always wanted. I only realized that only 6 months ago, that the amount of time we put into others, especially when you have those issues or have those, you have that childhood, or those experiences, and we're not really taught like we are now, and it plays a big part there, mate. It's you just don't realize it until you actually wake up like we have and go, they all think we're mad. If some people still think we're crazy, but it's a case of being. They said you can be accountable. Yeah, great. But who are you accountable for? For everyone else or yourself?
Yeah. So much. And so there I was trying to prove how much I could be. And in the province of Alberta, where I'm from, the government has what's called the Selective Traffic Enforcement Program.
Right.
And it dictates what law enforcement agencies should focus their traffic enforcement efforts on for each month. There's 12 12 different plans or whatever. And so for the month of November, or sorry, the month of February, just after I was told that I was the de facto leader, it was distracted driving. And having worked on highway patrol and as a volunteer firefighter for a while, I knew what distracted driving did. So I rallied my shift. I said, hey, let's try to do a lot of enforcement this month. Let's see what we can do, make a difference. And we did. We spent a lot of time doing distracted driving enforcement. And where I'm from, those are like a hefty ticket. They're costlier than a lot of other tickets. And about halfway through the month, I began to feel off, and I couldn't place it, but I knew something was wrong. And I felt that everybody I dealt with was abrasive. And so I just turned my focus to making it to the end of the month. And when March 1st came around, I had nothing left. I was done. Like, I had no energy. I was apathetic. I started, my work days just consisted of me drinking coffee, driving around. I'd go sit in parking lots for hours on end and just like stare blankly out the window. It soon got to the point where I couldn't sleep. I was taken up to 5 times the recommended dose of a sleep aid. And the most I could get out of that was about 2 hours of sleep a night, which, of course, the lack of sleep just wreaked havoc on my mental health. And I began to feel that my world was closing in around me. And I pretty soon I realized, or I believed that there was no way no way out other than to die. And so I would lay in bed. I would lay in bed at night and I would just ruminate with how horrible my life was. And
you feel like you were going through the spiritual awakening then, Laverne, or were you just like, because you said about the anxiety, I'm just looking at it. I'm looking at it differently to where some people feel those are the times where they just sort of go, right, when they have that thought, they either go one way or the other.
Yeah. I believe it was the process to start it. I had a retired police officer tell me one time, he said every suicidal person he dealt with was on the verge of a spiritual awakening.
Wow. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Well, now we understand that doing what we do.
Right. And I agree with him. I had never thought of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Yeah. That makes sense. I
mean,
if you put what you went through and what I went through and a lot of others have during this process, especially the last, say, few years that this has become more prevalent, you ask that question of where they made their turn and they might not understand it, but then you think, hang on. Because I know with mine, I had, there was a voice in my head. I usually stopped, like I just went on a splurge, drinking splurge, never drank like that, but I just thought, go away, you're going to get pissed, as they say. Then you stop. Then my mind said, it said, destroy the pain. Kept going. Yep. So I get you.
Yep. So that went on for about 2 or 3 months. So what happened in my career, I've worked with some guys that were amazing people, and some of them did peer support, and they'd always said, if you're ever struggling, anytime, reach out for help. I understand, whatever, right? And the closest I ever came was starting to take a text message at 3 a.m, but then the stigma of mental health kind of overpowered me, and I deleted the message. I was terrified of how people would perceive me. At the same time, I was crying for help inside. I was acting out at work a little bit. I wasn't doing anything. And I kept thinking, somebody's going to notice. Somebody's going to notice and come approach me. Nobody did. And so I was saved. And I consider myself lucky. And it's part of what I do now and why I feel so strongly about it. Because how many people go through something like that and they don't have any help with it? And I had an angel to help me. And my angel was my 3-year-old daughter. She was 3 years old at that time. And every night when I started going through my depression, she would wake up and she would come to my bed or our bed, but she would crawl in beside me And she would tuck her every single time, tuck her head into my armpit and fall back asleep. So while I was laying in bed and thinking about how horrible my life was and walking myself through my death, I walked myself through my plan many times. I would feel her beside me and I would listen to her breathing. And I knew I had to find a way to go on. I didn't know how. And so in a final act of desperation or act of desperation, I went to the one person in my life who I thought would understand and would help me. And I tried to explain to them how bad it was, and the message wasn't received. And so I blamed myself. Poor communicator, whatever. But I went back to this person a few nights later and I explained to them in detail how bad I was. And they looked me in the eye and they said, I know. And then they left the room.
And that was it.
That was it. That level of
no, you got desperation. No, you can see it in your eyes. I know. Then they walk off. I mean, that's you're putting your soul out to people. I think I get it. Keep going. I get it.
Man, that level of despair that I felt and hopelessness was just overwhelming. But that night, my daughter woke up and came cuddled beside me again. And so I knew I had to fight on. I didn't know what to do.
Well, look where you are now, mate. So be proud of yourself.
Yeah, we did it. I had been approved for an instructor course. And so I flew down to, after about 3 months of this, I flew down to Colorado for this police instructor course. And I should have been having the time of my life. And about halfway through the course, it was a week long, I started dreading coming back to work. And I was miserable. I came back, I flew home, and within about a week of me getting home, I ran into a firefighter that I'd known over the years, and we'd never worked together. We'd just kind of seen each other around. And I had a chat with him for about 2 hours, and he didn't know I was struggling, and I didn't tell him. But just having that connection, with someone different than work or out of law enforcement, it gave me some hope again, some life. And
so can I ask you? Sorry, cut you down because you're looking.
Yeah.
It's amazing and we've got about 10 minutes of this first part to go, which is bloody amazing so far. It's amazing when you connect with people that, I mean, you just have that, you don't have as much time with them. But when you actually you get into a point where you talk to people, where they get to know you, they start putting down. It's like that relationship type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't it a really weird thing? You went and talked to this guy that you hardly knew for 2 hours. You went to someone you knew, he gave you bugger all.
Yep.
Isn't it?
Yep.
That says everything. I get it. I get it. Because
Yep.
I got people like Sarah, Diana, and Cortez that I've known via the internet for 3 years, and I consider them closer friends than what I've got here. It's friggin' weird, isn't it?
I'm not surprised at all to hear that. And I'm a part of men's groups and in coaching and stuff. And I tell people all the time, it's when you're looking for help, don't necessarily look right around you. Look to the outskirts of your social circle. Sometimes those are the people that will help you the most. And that was the case with me. But in my case, I had surrounded myself with people that weren't good for me.
And you realize that too with regards to even at work and all that stuff. Yeah. And did you think, okay, I'll put you in this position then. I feel the same way. Yeah, because of the fact we didn't know what was going on, we put ourselves into positions and not knowing and understanding boundaries and shadow work and all our problems. Do you think it was a case of didn't know how to put boundaries and cope in that situation with those kind of people to know, okay, you're a workmate, I'll be respectful. Hello, how are you? Hope your life's well, da. Then withdraw. Do you think that's lacking? That was lacking? Because I feel that is lacking in a lot of us that sort of connect in the world. We go to work, nice people, no, they've got their own journey.
Yeah.
But there's someone I wouldn't want to go out and have a drink with, or you got your limit. Does that make sense to you? And all, and probably enhance
Yeah,
what's going on. Yeah.
yeah. There's a lot of that. Part of it was well, first of all, I had no idea what boundaries were, right? So I wasn't there.
Catch up.
There were no boundaries in my life.
Yes, agreed.
When I had been with that agency for about 2 years by the time I had my mental health crisis. And yes, I did surround myself with people that didn't necessarily have my best interests in mind, or, weren't the type of people to look out for me. However, when I first started there, we had many social events, our shift and stuff like that, but the shifts got scrambled around, and then so that makes it hard because now you don't have any friends on your shift. But then I used to host barbecues because I love to barbecue, and my ex-wife at some point became an introvert and didn't want me inviting people over to the house anymore. And so I started losing touch with some of my friends from work, right? And other friends as well. So that made it more isolating by the time I had my mental health crisis.
Right. Well, on that note, we've got about 3 minutes to go on this first episode, part one. Amazing story. We're going to move into your spiritual awakening and how much it has impacted yourself. You can see your aura for the way you are, and that's why I've reached out, because I think, and I'm so glad I did. The story that you're giving now, a lot of people can refer to it, because I mean, there's not as much people out there doing what we're doing, getting people's story out.
Yeah.
Because they need just a normal everyday person just having a chat. That's why I call it a chat with Jay, just having a chat and getting this stuff out. Ladies and gentlemen, that was part one. Part two is going to be just as amazing. And I want to thank my friend from Canada. Where the Bears here, where I wouldn't mind being. Trust me, Calgary's great. I love it. We'll be back with part two very, very soon. And I'm going to say that, if you do have anything you'd like to chat about, we're here. You might not know us, but you can see there's two men here that have been through it. And look, we know the one thing, the power of listening. And it's been an absolute pleasure to have Laverne on for part one. We really look forward to part two. Go get yourself a drink. Get ready for part two. It's going to be a blinder. We'll talk soon.